just want to go over another message today and hope it goes well. So I just want to take a moment to invite God in. We want it to be in His will, not ours. And then I'm going to open with the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Okay, so the picture today is, how can you go down the same road with someone that is on a different path? Walk with people going the same direction. You know, I made that comment because a couple of different, or that that quote made me think of a couple of different things. One, you know, I guess there's a couple of ways to put this. You know, for me, you know, I've talked in every video about being a recovering alcoholic. So I'm trying to go down the path of walking a spiritual life by spiritual principles and stay sober. Well, if I decide to date somebody that is drinking, not working a spiritual principles in his life, then more than likely, you know, I've always heard somebody's going to take you down before you bring them up. So it's going to be hard for me to stay sober, right? Because I'm around toxic behaviors that I used to do. And of course and I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying the odds are more that it's not going to work. I wouldn't want to take that chance. I would not want to take a chance living with somebody that's in active addiction. So that was kind of the first thing I was thinking about. You know, and fortunately, when I came into the program, I was single, so I didn't have to make that choice. There's so many times that people come into the program, they're married, their spouse is using or drinking, drugging, whatever it may be, and say one of them decides to get sober. Well, you don't automatically go out and get a divorce. Hopefully, you know, you leading by example, they will want to get sober too. And when it comes down to that, like, that's tough, because say you've been married for years and then you decide to make a different choice or way of life, and the other person don't. That's where, to me, you would have to get guidance from like a sponsor, friends, family, a pastor, somebody that you trust that's not going to co-sign your crap, and that's actually going to tell you an honest answer and just be open and honest as much as you can about your situation. I think that all of that would have to be situational. There's no black and white, like, pinpoint answer, and it's not in any of it. But obviously that's a little tricky to make a decision in exactly how to handle that situation. The other thing that it made me think about was we hear, I don't know anybody that was brought up in church or that's done any reading of the Bible when it talks about being unequally yoked. And you know, that's talking about a non-believer with a believer. Again, it's not that God is like shunning the non-believer, but when you're that close, you know, a marriage is something very special, and it's a bond, and it's teamwork, you know, trying to make life the best you can as a team, not one fighting the other. And it's kind of hard when you're living a life of spirituality, just like the same thing of getting sober. Like, they are so similar of, it's all spiritual. Like, and so regardless, if you're a Christian with a non-believer and you're trying to walk a spiritual path, but your spouse is not, it's kind of hard to get on the same road, because you have different wants and you have different needs and you have different perspectives on life. Same thing with somebody that's in active addiction, that's somebody that's clean. You both have different goals in life. So, you know, married, I don't have anything to say about that. I think that, like I said, is situational, and you just kind of have to work with people you trust to make the best choices. And obviously it's not just your choice, it is the other person's choice too. And I will have to say, just being in the rooms, I've heard people share I've heard people share that when they did get sober, their spouse was like, I don't even know who you are. It's like when you get sober, you're not the same person that you were in active addiction. We don't even, and I know when I got sober, I was sober, the first time I got sober for 18 months. And I can remember saying, like, I feel like the person that walked in that door died. Like, I knew her in my past, I don't know who she is today. Because you just start changing, and what's important is different, and what's, not important. All of those things change, and the spouse is all kinds of confused. Like, well, this is not who I married, if you say you were in active addiction when you first got together, or this is not who I know currently in our relationship. So we change a lot, and like I said, you just kind of have to figure it out. But they say in the rooms that you shouldn't start a relationship until you're at least a year sober. A lot of people are like, yeah, whatever. And obviously everybody's program is different. Everybody works their own program. It's not my place to sit here and tell somebody else what to do. What works for you may not work for me. What works for me may kill you. And I mean, just because my actions, like, say I only go to 2 meetings a week, and you might need to go to 7. Not that I don't need to go to 7, I should go to 7. But I'm just saying, like, whatever steps you need to take to stay sober is what's important. And for, like I've mentioned in quite a few videos, when you work your 4th and 5th step, you really get to know yourself, and you see your patterns. I know I've said that more than once, multiple times. So it's kind of hard when you're and I think of it like a butterfly, and I think I've shared that on another video. You're going through a change. You're crawling on your belly in active addiction. You're at the worst of worst in your life. And a lot of times we go into a really, really dark place, and I think of that as the cocoon. And then if we have the courage and the faith and the strength to hang on to the bittersweet end, we become this beautiful butterfly that can fly. And it's kind of hard to make all those changes and try to start a relationship, because how do you even know what you can offer to the relationship, because you don't even know who you are. So of course I did not listen the first time in. It just luckily worked out for a while, and it did help me a lot, because I lived the 12 steps 24/7. Anything that showed up in my life, when I confided in my partner at the time, of course I got feedback going around the 12-step program. Maybe that's what God knew I needed, but I do not think it was the best choice. I think that people should take time to get them to know themselves, give them plenty of space to just be able to grow as a person, and then you can start trying to build something with somebody else, because you kind of know more of what's important to you, who you are today, what your strengths are, what your character defects are. It's kind of hard to offer anything to somebody when you don't even know what you're offering, because for me, I don't even know who I am, and I've been on this roller coaster of getting sober and relapsing and getting sober, and every time I get sober, I have to sit and think, okay, what did I not do that I need to do, or what did I do that I need not to do? Again, that just kind of comes with me working the steps, me seeing patterns in my life. But back to the subject of walking the same path. Before, I used to have friends from all different walks of life, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm just saying that at the end of the day, for me right now, I want to make sure that my tribe are people that are sober, that want to stay sober, and that try to be the best version of themselves each and every day. Yes, I have acquaintances that I associate with, I have conversations with. I try to plant seeds where I can, just to say, this is how I believe, this is what helped me, this is what worked for me, and hoping and praying that I may be able to help somebody else. But as far as who I get really close to and I call my tribe or my people, we're all after the same thing in life. We're all walking a spiritual life, and we're trying to be the best version we can and following God and just, walking by those spiritual principles. But that's what works for me. Some people that's my safety net. Like, I have a hard time. I don't like getting real close to people that are not living that lifestyle, because I can easily fall back into old patterns. Because those were the types of things that I did. I was out there in active addiction. I'm running the streets. I'm doing things that I shouldn't be doing. I'm associating with people I shouldn't be associating with, and it's not pretty. And I know that it doesn't sometimes take much to go right back to those old behaviors. So I have to get away from those old playgrounds. I've got to find new people, a new way of life. And unfortunately, we have to kind of cut some ties with people because it's just too much. And I don't want to take that chance. I don't want to be doing really good and then I just can't break these ties with people. I've heard so many people start a relationship, just like I was saying early in sobriety, and then they start being around those toxic behaviors again, and they're like, well, I really like her, or I really like him, and I don't know what to do. Well, again, we should have waited, because for me, I feel like if I wait and actually get to know Daisy and see my patterns, if I don't know what I'm looking for, how am I going to find it? You can't find something if you don't know what you're looking for. Well, I see these patterns, so if I'm looking for those types of behaviors in other people, I'm seeing that before I make that decision. And sometimes we make decisions by old habits, by the way we, survived before in our lives, because that's what's always worked. But that doesn't mean that's all that can work. We have to be open-minded. I am so sorry. I have been talking all day at work, and my mouth is so dry from talking so much. So that's why I just try to stay around people that are on the same path. And then people say, well, what about family? I can't cut my family off. Generally speaking, no, I would never recommend turning your family off. However, sometimes people have to, but I always say that the best thing to do is just set healthy boundaries. Like if somebody in your family that you really love and that you're close to, if you're in early sobriety, you just have to be really careful. I'll phone calls, maybe not visits for a little bit, and you don't want to lie and just say, like, right now I'm going through a lot, however you need to explain yourself. I have to do that with my family. Some people I have to set healthy boundaries with, because, I don't want to be around any type of behaviors that's going to take me back. I worked too hard to get where I'm at to go back to that way of life. And I don't want to. I don't want to lose it, and I can lose it all in one night. It doesn't take but one time for me to pick up that drink, and it starts that complete constant cycle all over again. I get up. Well, let me start. That night, I get drunk. I go to bed. I wake up in the morning. I feel like crap. I don't want to feel like that. What do? I drink again to feel what? Normal. I start feeling normal. I start feeling good. Well, I might as well have a few more and get a buzz, right? Next thing you know, I'm in a blackout. The next thing you know, I go to bed and I get up the next morning. What am I doing? I don't feel good. I want to feel normal. So what do? I start drinking again. When is this cycle going to end? Never. It's never going to end until the pain becomes so great you're ready to make a change, which is where I got. And flipping my car in September was a wake-up call. I am scared to death, and no, it's not just fear that's keeping me sober, but I will say that is a huge part right now of my life, is that I remind myself quite often that I could be dead. I could have killed somebody else. Instead of sitting here sharing my gratefulness, sharing my thoughts, planting seeds for God, I could be sitting in a prison cell. Yes, if I want to believe that if I ever found myself sitting in a prison cell, that I would be like John the Baptist and I would still share God's word. no matter where I'm at. That's my thing. That's my goal. No matter if I'm living day-to-day normal life, or if I'm in rehab, or I'm in a mental ward, or I'm in jail, which I hope I don't have to go back to any of those. But if something was to happen and I did, I want to know that I can, like we talked about yesterday, I can, find peace in the storm and spread his word, because I got myself there. So, I can't be upset with anybody. I can't be upset with God because I go to jail. I can't be upset with God if, any direction I go, for the very thing that I'm the one that got myself there. Now, of course, sometimes people things happen and they go to jail and it wasn't their fault, but we're not going to get into all that. And the only reason I mention things like that is because I know sometimes you can hear one sentence and run with it. Like, well, I went to jail and it was just because of blah, 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 and it wasn't my fault. So I always try my best to remember to say those words. Like, I understand there's always an exception to every rule, and I'm never pointing the finger at any specific person. So I just feel like it's very important to try to surround yourself with people that are trying to go down the same road that you are. And that way you don't get deterred to go the wrong direction and get back into old behaviors and old lifestyles. And that's just what works for me. That's what I have to do. So I think that's all I have on this subject for tonight. It's about time to wrap it up anyway. I hope everybody has had a wonderful day, and I hope this message was able to help someone. As you see above, I am offering life coaching, and my email is right below that, maydaisy79@gmail.com. I'm sorry, maydaisylove79@gmail.com. And if you want to pop me a message, if you have any questions, if you're interested in life coaching, or if you just have comments or feedback on anything that I share, even if it's negative, I'll take it. I'm always open to learn and process how other people may perceive my message, and I may say something incorrectly, or it's just a different matter of opinion, and I may be able to learn something from you. So we're going to close this up, and I will see you all hopefully tomorrow. Have a great evening. Thanks so much, and goodbye.